Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Minecraft Memory, the show that's a little bit less about Minecraft and more about memories. As always, I'm Kyle. Last time we talked a little bit about Christmas and the holiday season, but I wanted to venture back to the younger era, the young Link, if you will. The reason I wanted to do this is because I've got quite a few more memories that have to do with this time period. So probably logical to get those out of the way first. When I was younger, we lived in a cabin, a little resort cabin that my grandpa owned. As I got older, and not much older at that, I think I was not even one when we moved into the trailer. As I just said, we moved into a trailer. Once we got to the trailer, that's when I kind of started remembering things. One of my earliest memories is of Dad putting flower beds in our yard. My dad has always been a green thumb, and it's a passion that he's kind of passed down to me. And I remember saying something along the lines of, "Are those flower beds?" "Yes, son. And speaking of bed, I think it's your nap time." And from there, I remember meandering off. He had a little shed in the yard, so I meandered off behind the shed into the swing set because, I don't need no nap. I don't need no thought control. Hey, teacher, leave those kids alone. I've been very sing-songy with my episodes as of late. You're going to have to either forgive me or embrace it. Embrace it. Embrace it. Just embrace the madness. Another early memory I have is playing with a McDonald's toy on our front deck. And it was a Friday because I didn't have preschool that day. So I must have been either 3 or 4. Yeah, 3 or 4. That's preschool age, I believe. Do that. That's just that. I don't remember what the toys were, but I do know that my parents were caught up in that whole scam of, these McDonald's toys are going to be worth a lot one day. People are going to pay $20 per McDonald's toy. You'd better hang on to them. And so my dad built these little shelves that ran around the perimeter. Oh yeah, that's right. Derp. My dad built these little shelves that ran around the perimeter of our room, up near the top, and all the McDonald's toys were placed up there, including a few that were still in package, because my parents wanted to become rich. And needless to say, that did not happen. Apparently, people don't pay that much for cheap little plastic pieces of garbage that were mass-produced and given away for almost nothing mere years ago. And it turns out that if everyone believes this and holds on to them and there are no buyers, the economy does not allow for these toys to be worth $15 to $20 a piece. So it's a good thing that they didn't live during the Beanie Baby craze. Well, they did live during the Beanie Baby craze. It's a good thing that they had kind of shaken themselves out of that whole train of thought by the time the Beanie Babies came around, because I know that those were supposedly super addicting for people that were into the whole, spend a penny now, get $1 later. When we were in the trailer, one of the things I remembered was Dad having a green thumb. He'd planted ferns around the house. Kind of liking this, but I think this roof needs to be a little bit steeper. Even steeper. Even Stevens' favorite anime. No, Corey in the House, isn't that right? Isn't that the meme? You kids are going to have to teach me how to meme. I've lost the ability with age. It'll happen to you too. He planted these ferns around the edge of the house. They look good, they're pretty, they're ferns. That's what they do, just look good. And I pulled them up. They're little, when ferns start growing, they come up out of the ground and they have a little spindle. And that spindle will unwind itself before laying out, and, classical fern behavior. What I did was I pulled those little spindles out of the ground and then stuck them elsewhere. My reasoning being, hey, why don't we, if Dad likes ferns, why don't we put ferns everywhere? A good train of thought, right? Yeah, I thought so too. It turns out Dad wasn't too happy with my logic. It turns out that my logic might have been a little flawed. Yeah, that's kind of cute. We'll keep that. We'll put this up here. So I got in trouble for that. Not really in trouble because I was a kid and didn't know any better. But he did yell at me and he was a little upset. Um, Sorry, Dad. Another time that happened was I was outside in the yard playing, and I think my friend Mike was over. And I pulled the hose out and we were playing in the yard with the water hose, making little streams going down the hill, and we just thought it was the coolest thing in the world. My dad did not think it was the coolest thing in the world. He came home and was a little upset about how much water we'd wasted, especially given the fact that we were not too well off. This was during the famine years, as we can maybe call them. Mike was an interesting character. He was an adopted kid, or I guess he wasn't adopted. He was in foster care. He would go from home to home, and the people that wanted to kind of take care of him for a few years would take care of him and raise them. So what happened? What happened was he wound up being in foster care under this super religious family just down the road, the Halls. And I think I can give away their last name because it's such a common name, no one's ever going to know who it is. The Halls had 2 biological kids and I think 2 foster kids. And they're very Catholic. I don't know if they're still around. I'm assuming they were. The house is still there. But, we kind of know, without Mike there's no real reason to visit. But Mike was always a little bit of a troubled child. He had a temper that would flare up during school hours, and one of the teachers would have to always take him to a room by himself and just let him go bananas. He would throw things against the wall. He would yell, pick up chairs. After he settled down, she would, going back to Miss Carroll, she would bring him to our room. But Miss Carroll had convinced me that Mike was a bad influence. And while this might be true, she didn't kind of consider that conversely, I was a good influence. And I admit, a bit embarrassed to be seen with him in front of her because I was afraid she was judging me because she'd voiced her opinion about him, and I was like, ooh. So I was a little bit. I wasn't hostile. I didn't say go away or anything like that, but I was a little bit. We can just say I was a little bit distant when she was around, but when we were back home, man, we were good friends. He would always go down and stay a few nights with my step-grandma. Her name is Rita. Grandma-in-law. I'm going to say step-grandma. Grandpa divorced, married another woman, and that's who this woman was. And these are flat islands. Let's do something with these islands. Let's make it like a little tiki bar, maybe. Yeah, we could do a tiki bar, but maybe we can do something a little bit better. Maybe this was an old fort. So Mike would always go and stay with them sometimes. And I remember one time we went to Walmart, and give a little backstory here. He would always get me to spend my money on arcade games. My grandpa at this time, the store hadn't burnt down. There was a store that he owned at the resort, and it wound up burning down, and that was a whole thing. It happened on a Friday. It was a Friday in May. I was in 5th grade, so I guess that would have been 1999, or 2000, whichever one. But he would always get me to spend my money on arcade games, and my parents weren't too happy with that, which is reasonable. You don't want your kids spending money, but I gotta tell you, I watch Let's Plays, and I will still give my money to people who play video games. Because he would play the arcade games, and I would just watch. I wasn't a video game player. They gave me too much. I hate playing video games, said the guy playing Minecraft. But a lot of times games, at least for the longest time, just filled me with dread, because the whole idea of dying was like, I mean, yeah, you can keep playing over and over again, but keep in mind, I grew up during the era of Nintendo Tough Games. These were the games that had no continuation, or if they did, it was a lot of backtracking, it was a lot of progress lost. It wasn't the easy, respawn, yes, no. So we went to Walmart this one time, And my parents told me not to let him spend my money. I was to spend this money on myself. And they had given me, I think, $5. And I kind of did what they said. I spent a little on him, by which I mean half. I bought we each got a little bit of the Cinnabon Cinnarolls, those little glazed pastries that come in a package that you can buy in singles. We each got one of those. Well, that was a bit of a leg. That was weird. And we each took a turn on the arcade game. And I even played because I remembered I had to. And, that was the $5. Maybe it was $3 because I feel like the arcade game was... No, maybe it was 50 cents a piece. Yeah, I guess that... Whoa. Hello, Forrest. How are you? I am the most interesting Minecrafter in the world. Mike had these Pogs that we just loved to play with. I never bought any Pogs myself, but he had them, and we played them, and he was my link to that fad. Whenever people talk about, hey, does anybody else DAE Pogs? The only reason I can say yes is because of him. I remember one time we got really muddy. We were over at Rita's, Grandpa and Rita's. When I say Rita's, the reason I say hers instead of Grandpa's is because Grandpa was often out and about in the resort dealing with other things. And I think to him, we were just some punk kids. And maybe that's true, but... so it was always Rita's. But we went and got really muddy. And when we came back, I put on some of his clothes. And then when my parents came to pick me up, for some reason I was super embarrassed about being in his clothes. So I quickly ran to the bathroom and changed into mine. I don't know why, but there you go. I remember one time Mike's adopted brother, it was the biological son of the Halls. His name was John. He would sometimes hang with us, but he was a little bit less cool, in my opinion, than Mike. And I don't know what happened, but one time John was like throwing rocks or something at me, and Mike was defending me, but Mike was actually going to get in trouble. Like, they went home, and I think John told on Mike and like tried to frame him, and I went home crying because John was throwing rocks. And I told Mom what happened, and she said, you better call them and tell them that way Mike doesn't get in trouble. And I did, and because I was a kid that cried a lot, I wound up crying. But Mom made me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I guess that made it all better. Because, in the end, it doesn't matter who wins or loses. What matters is who ate the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And on that glorious day, my friends, it was me. We used to build these clubhouses in the woods. Like, the woods were always thick and dense like that. And we would build clubhouses out of fallen limbs that we'd found. And we had different clubhouse areas. He had a clubhouse, I had a clubhouse, Malcolm had a clubhouse. I think Adam started coming over around this time, but often I would go over to his house more. Oh man, those were fun memories over at his house. He had the video game system, and man, I'll tell you about that later. But we built these clubhouses in the woods right behind our trailer. I guess technically right in front of it, because it was trailer, street, woods. So we would go down to the woods and build a... And I remember one time, one of them had a lighter, and we would scavenge stuff out of the dumpster, and one of us had scavenged like this, it was almost like a metal bowl, but it had like bits and bobs on it. I think it had like a little turn portion, and I don't know. It wasn't a bowl. It was just like a little square container made out of metal, iron, I think, or aluminum, or some hardy metal, but it was rusted, so probably not aluminum. We like tried to start a fire in there, and like Mom and Dad found out somehow, and they're like, "Did you try and start a fire?" No, I said. I was quick to defend. No, we didn't start. No, what are you talking about? And of course, because you're a kid, you don't lie very well. But rather than bust me, Mom and Dad were like, hey, Kyle, listen. If you ever need to defend your friends like that, obviously you can't come out and say, no, we didn't. Instead, just say nothing. And that was actually a really cool kind of, first of all, cool concept. I didn't know that was an option. But it was cool that they would tell me that, because they understand that I'm not going to be able to maintain a healthy friendship, and this is probably a little too many cracked, maintain a healthy friendship and be honest. So they gave me the option to say nothing. Any words you say can and will be held against you in the court of Mom. And I thought that was pretty cool. I remember Mom and Dad they didn't warn me about Mike so much as they told me to keep an eye on him for behavioral purposes, because he did have a propensity toward violence. And so I did. They told me not to pee in the woods like Mike does, but I peed in the woods. You think I'm going to go back inside and pee? Nah, I'm peeing in the woods. And, because, come on, Dad peed in the woods. Everybody does a guy who pees in the woods. Maybe put like a little arch here or something. Yeah, I can ship that. I remember one time we were building a clubhouse, and this was several lots down, and we'll talk about all the property we owned. I was one time a wealthy landowner. I must have been I was still in elementary school, but I was a wealthy landowner, believe you me. Let's do a different light block. I'm sure we got some other light. Do we not have others? We probably do, but, oh yeah, sea lantern. I remembered these from something. We are out at sea. I love you, Glowstone, but this is the job for sea lantern. Underneath the water. Sea lantern underneath the water. Sea lantern at the bottom of the sea. Yeah, a little bit. I don't know how I feel about it. I guess I feel okay. Why is frame rate issue? Anyway, we built these clubhouses out of kind of old refuse that we collected from a dumpster, which was a little bit down the road. And it obviously looked like a trash pile. I was in third grade when this happened. And when you're in third grade, you're not too keen on the aesthetics of your dwelling. But I had a house. I had a little clubhouse, and we were playing in it, and it started raining. And I had two options. I could either walk down the street, it's about maybe 300, 400 feet. It wasn't too far. Being mostly covered by trees and not get too wet, or I could stay in this little hovel and get absolutely drenched. I caught pneumonia later that year, so I'll let you guess which of those decisions I went with. And the pneumonia I caught, it was kind of the linchpin for several things. First off, I've had bad lungs ever since, and it turns out the lasagna that I'd caught, I hate Mondays. The pneumonia that I'd caught was something that's referred to as walking pneumonia, which means that you have the pneumonia, but you're still rather healthy, and you don't know that you have pneumonia. And I had this persistent cough for like 2 weeks, and we'd gone to the doctor several times, and like it had to have been like the third time I got x-rayed. They finally said, you got a little bit of pneumonia here, friendo. I didn't know what pneumonia was, but it freaked Mom out, so I had to go on like these antibiotics, and I missed like a week and a half of school. And I think this is where I learned that you can get out of class by saying you don't feel good. You better believe I had a lot of days off that year. I abused that system. And I don't know if Mom went with it because she wanted me at home, or if she went with it because she genuinely believed me, which I don't think is what she did. I don't think she believed me. But I got a lot of time off that year. And it was to the point, I think, where one of the teachers said, hey Kyle, if you miss any days next year, you don't get to graduate. And I was super worried, and I told Mom and Dad, and they said, Kyle, relax, just let us take care of it. I hate bragging. It's one of my least favorite activities, but if I'm being honest in this, I was pretty smart as a kid. That's not saying that carried over. I'm not implying that. But I was really smart as a kid. Miss Carroll, third grade again, she comes up a lot here. She said that I was the only student that she's ever had that could simultaneously read and listen to what she's saying. And I mean, I can still do that to this day. If someone's talking, I can be reading and, hey, what did I just say? And I'll repeat it back to them. Well, what did you just read? And I'll repeat what I just read. And so I probably wasn't a candidate for being withheld a year. My rival, as mentioned not last episode, of 2 episodes ago? 2 episodes ago, yeah. Nicholas, last name withheld. He was raised super Catholic, super strict. His mom was, let's just say my mom was no fan because of how strict she parented. But in 4th grade, Nicholas Morgan and I had this competition to see who could get the most accelerated reader points. I'm sure most of you have had accelerated reader, or if you haven't had it, you're probably aware of what it is. It's essentially a way to get kids to read. You take books, and depending on their difficulty and length, section them out and give each of them a point value. Kid reads the book, goes on the computer and takes a test. Depending on how many questions the kid got right, depends on how many points he got. If you miss too many questions, you get no points. Pretty simple. So if you read a Dr. Seuss book, that's worth half a point. And then some of the lengthier novels were like 12, 13, 14 points. So we went for the heavier novels. And I think the first year I had like 121 and he had 123. And so they gave him the reward, but they like commended both of us. They said, but they both did a good job. And the whole year, man, he was like, I beat you in accelerated reader, I beat you in accelerated reader. all right, you did. This was in 4th grade. 5th grade rolls around, and then I clandestinely got books from the library, and I read them. And I guess he didn't pay attention to my point value. It was like, I guess he didn't care. That year we had less points total. We were in the 80s, I think. I think he was in the 80s. I think I was in the 90s. And I got like a $50 gift certificate to college. It was like a savings bond, $50, which I've never seen that. I don't know what happened to it. They said they put it in a bank. Man, all the interest collected on it, that $50 is probably now $51. No, I'm joking. It's probably less than 50 now. Or I don't think that's how interest works. Not that much. Not worth pursuing. Especially since I've already done the whole college thing. But after that, I looked at him and I said, I could say it, but I don't have to. It's kind of a drop the mic, walk away moment. I think that was a very mature response for a kid, especially since it's been something I've been thinking about all year. I was like, ooh. I don't know why. I guess I just realized, I beat him. He knows it. There's no point in holding it over his head. He's let him lick the wounds, and of course we're still friends. Until he moved away. He moved away to St. Louis, I believe, and I've actually looked for him online, and I can't find him anywhere. I'd love to find him one day, just not even contact him, just see what he's doing, see what someone like him wound up doing. Raised Catholic, very religiously so, and someone like him, you could either go into the ministry, become a Catholic priest, or he could do something more. Who knows? We haven't seen each other since middle school. He moved away in 7th grade, and that was like over a decade and a half ago, 15 years, I would say. And, you always wonder what happens to those people that you once knew, and he was a person I once knew. Looking at the time here, guys, it's almost 25 minutes, so I'm going to cut it off here, and thanks for watching.